Choosing the right bike is something you could talk about for hours. Choosing the right sort of tyres to take on the trip is something you could talk about for a long time as well. Really, it's down to individual taste, it's down to budget. It depends which countries you are travelling through. It depends what parts are available in all those different countries as well. I mean, if you are going through North America, Central America, and South America, you've got to think to yourself, well, what parts can I get? KLRs were well catered for, BMWs were well catered for. You've got to think about what type of tyres are available, where you can get them, how much they'll cost, how long they'll last. All the countries you do travel through, they're very, very versatile when it comes to fixing bikes. You know, you don't have to go to a BMW garage to get a BMW fix, but more often than not we did, and there were a hell of a lot of them for the whole of the way along the trip. We saw a few people with Africa Twins. We saw people with brand new BMWs. I'm just trying to think if there are any more really. No, I think that's about it. Bikes that were older were a little bit more problematic. Bikes that were brand new, you know, were even problematic as well. We had one guy on a 2009 BMW, and his electrics went, and then there were guys on a 2011 BMW. They were doing lots of off-road, and they probably had to use their warranty on every single part of the bike because they were just really, really giving it hell for leather. Our bike was 6, 7 years old. It was a BMW GS Adventure, and we had no problems with it at all. We had punctures, which you know you get. We had to change the brake pads. We had an oil leak, but just out the top. So you know it's a lot to do with luck as well and how you treat your bike. So my advice is you know, think about your budget, think about where you're travelling to, think about how you're going to treat it, think about how good you are at maintaining things, and how, thinking about the bikes a little bit more as well. Parts is a big thing. If you're a chain-driven bike, you've got to think about your chain and sprocket, so carrying those sort of things around. Because we were on a BMW and it was shaft-driven, you know, the maintenance there was fantastic. Really, you know, we didn't have to be oiling our chain every other day. We didn't have to be carrying the chains and sprockets and continually getting those replaced because, you know, when you're doing a massive trip, these things really do take their wear and tear. Think about what bike you're going to get as well, and think about whether you want to sell it. I mean, you can actually, you know, go all the way to the tip of Argentina or end up in Buenos Aires, and there are lots of adventure motorcyclists finishing trips and starting trips. So, you know, there is a market for bikes. You can actually sell your bikes at the end of your trip. Thinking about which bikes I saw a little bit more as well, you know, there were KTMs, there were Harleys, there were Yamahas, so you know, everybody tries it on, you know, many different models and types, so you know, whatever you fancy really. Documentation for your bike is very important, and the basics are your vehicle ownership papers and your passport, and then the insurance for the given country. Sometimes you can organise the insurance before you go away, sometimes you can buy it at the borders, sometimes you don't have any. In terms of visas as well, I don't have a massive amount to say on the matter. We did initially plan to go overland to Australia, but because of the visa requirements passing through all the different countries, we then decided to do top to bottom of the world, because if you're travelling from Alaska to Argentina, you basically don't need any visas for UK citizens. So, you know, that worked really well for us, and then you enter the country, you're allowed to stay in the country for 90 days, whatever it might be. One piece of advice I can offer for America is when should you go to Alaska, if you're entering America, Alaska's an American state. If you enter Alaska, you're allowed to be in the country for 3 months. Once you enter, your visa starts ticking down. So we arrived in Alaska, then we went to Canada, then we re-entered America. Now, because we'd been in Canada for, say, a month and a half, that meant our American visa was still ticking down because the visa started in Alaska. Anyway, I hope this makes sense. The bottom line is we arrived in America, we had less time to spend in America, so the Americans lost out on our dollar. Borders are very interesting, dirty, boring, exciting, crazy places, and there is so much going on at a border. Uh, I think the biggest challenges are in Central America and South America. The borders there, you've got to have your passport ready, your documentation ready, and then you've just got to take whatever is thrown at you at the border. Some borders you're actually chased to the officers by 6 or 8 men waving things, waving money, waving documentation, and they can all guarantee that will get you through the border quicker and more safely than anybody else. Anyway, my piece of advice is don't talk to any of them. Just keep yourself to yourself, do the paperwork yourself, and if you're travelling in a group, then things are a lot easier. One can stay with the bike, one can go and do the paperwork. Give yourself half a day for every border. Some borders took us 3 hours, some borders took us half an hour, but more often than not, you're there a good couple of hours, and there are lots of people around sometimes, and they want to watch your bike for you, but everything is safe because there are officials around. Crossing in North America was fine. I mean, crossing into America again, they're very stringent with their checks. They like to, ask you 10 dozen questions about why you're in the country, and I mentioned earlier about the problem with re-entering America. Borders, just give yourself a bit of time and eat well before you arrive. Make yourself a packed lunch if you can. Take plenty of water. And we got ripped off once by paying a road toll which didn't really exist, and it cost us something like £20–30. So not the end of the world, but be aware. Thanks. When it came to planning our trip from top to bottom of the world, the 15 countries and the 29,000 miles, we planned it to an extent, but we weren't very, very timescale driven in terms of, we didn't have a certain place to be with first week, second week, third week, fourth week. We just basically had a rough plan. We actually did our research before we left. We referred to the Globebusters site actually, and had a look at the route they took down the west coast of the Americas. We referred to Horizons Unlimited, of course. Horizons Unlimited was a great source of information, a great way of keeping in touch with riders. You could find riders en route, particularly when we arrived in Mexico and Central America. We kept in touch with a lot of guys that way. ADV Riders, a good site as well. In terms of research in the countries, we actually took along with us The Lonely Planet. So we had a North America version, a Central America, a South America. Now, because these books are quite thick and quite hefty, we actually took an Amazon Kindle with us and had all of our books safe on there, so we could refer to those and have a look through all the different chapters. We took our iPhone as well, so if there was Wi-Fi available, we could research the different sites. Keep an eye on local news, whichever country you're in, have a look at what's going on. Refer to the consulates every now and again so you can find out where it is safe to travel. We actually came across a Mexican truck driver in Mexico. We stayed with a Mexican family. When we arrived in Mexico, we actually stayed with them and we learned Spanish. Anyway, a truck driver basically said to us, you can visit these parts of Mexico but don't visit these parts. So we listened to his every word and avoided the cities which he recommended not to go. In terms of our big planning, really, we only planned to arrive in Alaska, and that was it really. Then beyond that, it was just really staying ahead of all the different seasons and making sure that we got to South America, to Tierra del Fuego, before it actually got too cold and started snowing. So Alaska was a big preparation for us, and our first couple of weeks on the road there. But after that, we were just basically planning a week or two in advance. So we had a rough 5 or 7 days ahead of where we were that particular day, and that's the sort of timescale that we worked to. So that's it for planning, really. Refer to the guidebook, speak to other travellers, speak to locals, and never be afraid of asking for information and getting as much information as possible.